Organic always means safe. A lot of people think that if something is labeled organic or natural, it must be harmless. But that's not how it works. Organic pesticides and fertilizers can still be toxic, sometimes seriously so. The word organic just means the substance comes from natural sources rather than being synthesized in a lab. It doesn't mean safe. Take rotenone, for example. This pesticide comes from the roots of certain tropical plants. Farmers have used it for decades to kill insects and fish. But rotenone is highly toxic to humans and animals. It can damage cells in ways that might contribute to Parkinson's disease. Then there's copper sulfate, a common organic fungicide. It kills beneficial insects, harms earthworms, and can poison fish in nearby waterways. Even pyrethrin, derived from chrysanthemum flowers, can trigger asthma attacks and harm cats. The natural origin of these substances doesn't make them gentle. Plenty of natural things are deadly. Arsenic is natural. Snake venom is natural. What matters is the chemical itself and how it affects living things. Understanding this helps you make smarter choices about what you use in your garden and around your home. Companion planting magic. Gardeners have sworn by companion planting for generations. The idea is simple. Plant certain things together and they'll help each other out. Marigolds will keep aphids away from your tomatoes. Basil planted next to tomatoes makes them taste better. Beans fix nitrogen in the soil for their neighbors. It sounds great, and garden books are full of charts showing what to plant with what. The problem is that most of these claims don't hold up when scientists actually test them. Researchers have looked at marigolds and pest control dozens of times. The results are mixed at best, and any effect is usually too small to matter in a real garden. The basil improves tomato flavor claim has zero scientific backing. It's garden folklore that got repeated until everyone believed it. Some combinations do work, but for boring reasons. Tall plants can shade shorter ones. Dense plantings can block weeds. Flowers attract pollinators that help everything nearby. These aren't magic partnerships, just practical arrangements. The companion planting charts persist because gardens are complicated places where lots of things affect your harvest, making it easy to credit the wrong cause. Eggshells for calcium. You've probably heard that crushing up eggshells and mixing them into your garden soil will give your plants a calcium boost. It sounds perfect because eggshells are almost pure calcium carbonate. The problem is that plants can't actually use calcium in that form. When you bury crushed eggshells in soil, they sit there mostly intact for months or even years. Calcium carbonate needs to break down into a soluble form before plant roots can absorb it, and that breakdown happens extremely slowly in most garden conditions. Plants take up calcium as dissolved ions through their roots, specifically as calcium that's been released into the soil water. This requires the right soil pH, usually slightly acidic conditions, and even then eggshells decompose at a glacial pace. What actually works is applying calcium in forms that dissolve readily, like gypsum or lime, which release calcium ions that roots can immediately access. The eggshell method isn't completely useless since they'll eventually contribute something over the long term. But if your tomatoes have blossom end rot right now, or your peppers need calcium today, crushed eggshells won't save them. Understanding how nutrients actually move from soil into plants matters because it helps you fix problems that are happening in real time. Coffee grounds cure-all. People dump their used coffee grounds in the garden, thinking they're doing something amazing for their plants. The internet is full of claims that coffee grounds will acidify your soil, chase away slugs and cats, or feed your tomatoes into championship size. Most of this is wrong. Used coffee grounds are actually close to neutral in pH, not acidic. The acid stays in your cup when you brew the coffee. As for pests, slugs will crawl right over coffee grounds without a second thought. Cats might avoid a fresh pile for a day or two, but that's about it. The nutrient content is real but modest. Coffee grounds have some nitrogen, but not enough to replace actual fertilizer. They're about 2% nitrogen by weight, which sounds okay until you realize how little that actually is per handful. What coffee grounds do well is add organic matter to compost piles. They count as a green material and help things break down. Just mix them in with your browns and let them decompose properly. They're not magic, but they're not useless either. You just have to know what they actually do. Banana peels for potassium. People toss banana peels into their garden beds thinking they're giving plants a quick potassium boost. That's not quite how it works. The potassium in banana peels is locked inside plant cells, wrapped up in organic matter that needs to break down first. When you lay a fresh peel on soil, it just sits there. Plants can't absorb potassium from solid banana skin any more than you can eat a steak through a plastic wrapper. The decomposition process takes weeks or even months depending on temperature and moisture. During that time, the peels often attract fruit flies, fungus gnats, and other pests drawn to the sweet, rotting fruit. Some gardeners bury the peels to hide them, but that slows decomposition even more since there's less oxygen underground. If you want potassium in your soil right now, wood ash or a balanced fertilizer works much faster. Compost that includes banana peels is fine because everything breaks down together in controlled conditions. The real lesson here is that good intentions don't speed up chemistry. Plants work on their own schedule, and fresh kitchen scraps need time to transform into something roots can actually use. Epsom salt miracle. You've probably heard someone swear by Epsom salt for their garden. It's magnesium sulfate, and gardeners dump it on everything from tomatoes to roses like it's some kind of cure-all. Here's the thing, though. It only helps if your soil actually lacks magnesium. Most soil doesn't. When you add Epsom salt to soil that already has enough magnesium, you're creating problems instead of solving them. The extra magnesium starts blocking calcium and potassium from getting into your plants. You end up with new deficiencies you didn't have before. Your plants might get yellow leaves or weak stems, and you'll be scratching your head, wondering what went wrong. Now, if you've got a confirmed magnesium deficiency, usually shown by yellowing between the leaf veins on older leaves, then Epsom salt can work wonders. Tomatoes and peppers sometimes need it, especially in sandy soil that drains fast. But dumping it on everything as a routine feeding is just asking for nutrient chaos in your soil. The lesson here is simple. Test your soil first. Know what's actually missing before you start adding things. Garden myths stick around because they work sometimes, but that doesn't mean they work all the time. Organic means no chemicals. That's what a lot of people think when they see the organic label on food or hear about organic gardening. But it's not actually true. Everything around you is made of chemicals. Water is a chemical. The air you breathe is a mix of chemicals. Your body is built from chemicals, so when someone says organic means no chemicals, they're missing the point entirely. What organic really means is that certain chemicals are allowed and others aren't. Organic farmers and gardeners can still spray their plants with pesticides and fertilizers. They just have to use ones that come from natural sources or meet specific standards set by certification programs. Copper sulfate, neem oil, and pyrethrin are all chemicals used in organic growing. They're derived from minerals, plants, or other natural materials, but they're still chemical compounds that can kill insects or prevent disease. The visible difference isn't about chemicals versus no chemicals. It's about which chemicals get used and how they break down in the environment. Understanding this matters because it helps you make informed choices. Organic practices often focus on soil health and sustainability, but calling them chemical-free just isn't accurate. Native plants need nothing. That's the dream people hear when they first learn about native gardening. Plant it once and walk away forever. No watering, no feeding, no fussing, just pure self-sufficiency. But that's not quite how it works. Native plants evolved in specific wild conditions with particular soil types, moisture patterns, and competition from other plants. Your garden is not that place. You've got compacted soil from construction, weird drainage, and maybe a spot that's way sunnier or shadier than where that plant naturally grows. A native that thrives in a mountain meadow won't automatically succeed in your clay-heavy backyard. Most natives do need regular water for their first year or two while they establish deep roots. After that, many can handle drought better than non-natives. But better doesn't mean never. During extreme dry spells, even tough natives appreciate a drink. They rarely need fertilizer since they're adapted to local soil, but amending terrible soil before planting helps tremendously. The real advantage is that established natives need far less intervention than typical garden plants. They're lower maintenance, not no maintenance. Understanding that difference means your native garden actually succeeds instead of just struggling along. Compost tea prevents disease. Except it probably doesn't. People steep compost in water like they're making giant batches of garden tea, then spray it on plants expecting it to fight off diseases and deliver nutrients. The idea sounds great, but the science doesn't back it up. Studies keep showing that compost tea doesn't reliably prevent plant diseases or add meaningful amounts of nutrients to soil. What you're mostly spraying is water with some dissolved organic matter and microbes floating around. Here's the bigger problem. When you brew compost tea, especially if you add things like molasses to feed the bacteria, you're creating perfect conditions for all kinds of microbes to multiply. Some of those might be beneficial, but some could be harmful, including E. coli and salmonella. You can't see what's growing in there, and most home gardeners don't have labs to test their batches. What compost tea actually does is add a small amount of organic matter to leaf surfaces. That's not nothing, but you'd get better results just putting regular compost directly into your soil. It's cheaper, safer, and actually proven to improve soil health and feed plants over time. Synthetic fertilizers kill soil. This is one of those claims that sounds right but falls apart when you look at what actually happens. The idea is that synthetic fertilizers are chemicals that poison the ground and wipe out all the good bacteria and earthworms, but plants don't care where nitrogen comes from. When a plant absorbs nitrogen, it's taking in the exact same molecule whether it came from compost or a bag of ammonium nitrate. The plant can't tell the difference because there isn't one. A nitrate ion is a nitrate ion. What actually damages soil is misuse, not the fertilizer itself. Dumping on way too much of anything, synthetic or organic, can burn plants and throw off the soil balance. But when you apply synthetic fertilizer at reasonable rates, soil organisms keep doing their thing. They break down organic matter, create soil structure, and cycle nutrients just like always. Studies show that fields using synthetic fertilizers can have just as much biological activity as organic fields if farmers maintain organic matter through crop rotation and residue management. The real issue isn't synthetic versus natural. It's whether you're managing the whole system or just dumping stuff on and hoping for the best. Moon phase planting. Some gardeners swear you should plant seeds during specific moon phases for better growth. The idea is that the moon's gravitational pull affects water in the soil and plants, just like it influences ocean tides. Root crops supposedly do better when planted during a waning moon, while leafy crops prefer a waxing moon. It sounds logical enough that the practice has stuck around for centuries. The problem is that controlled scientific studies have found no connection between moon phases and plant growth. The moon's gravitational effect on soil moisture is essentially zero at ground level. What actually determines germination and growth timing is soil temperature, moisture levels, day length, and air temperature. A seed planted in cold soil during the right moon phase will just sit there, while the same seed in warm, moist soil during the wrong phase will sprout right on schedule. The myth persists because gardening involves so many variables that it's easy to see patterns that aren't really there. When plants do well, people remember the moon phase. When they fail, they blame something else. Modern agriculture relies on soil conditions and weather forecasts, not lunar calendars, because that's what actually makes the difference. Organic produces more nutrients. That's what a lot of people believe when they're standing in the grocery store deciding whether to pay extra for organic tomatoes or apples. The assumption makes sense. You're avoiding pesticides and choosing something more natural, so it should be healthier in every way. But when researchers actually measure the vitamins and minerals in organic versus conventional produce, they find almost no difference. Study after study shows that an organic carrot and a regular carrot have basically the same nutritional value. What really affects nutrient content has nothing to do with whether pesticides were used. It's about freshness, soil quality, and variety. A tomato loses vitamin C the longer it sits after being picked. The specific type of apple matters more than how it was grown. Rich, well-managed soil produces more nutritious food, whether it's organic or not. Even how ripe something is when it's harvested changes the nutrients inside. This doesn't mean organic farming has no benefits. It's better for reducing pesticide exposure and often better for the environment. But if you're buying organic specifically because you think it's more nutritious, you're paying extra for something that isn't really there.